Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the MarketSite studio, we have Dr. Merav Ozair. She is a global blockchain and cryptocurrency expert, and we are going to discuss how regulators should approach sensible regulation around technologies like AI. Merav, as you know, one of my favorite topics to cover because there's so much hype around these technologies. ChatGPT, it's all we've been talking about since the beginning of the year. And with that comes panic, right?
Right.
Why do you think the EU is hitting the panic button when it comes to concepts like AI, generative AI, ChatGPT?
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, let's put it this way. I mean, technology is a tool, right? Like any tool, if you have like a hammer, you can take the hammer and you can build a nice place, your house or something, or you can take the hammer in a hurt situation rather than you can hurt somebody with this. So there's a dual purpose. Now the dual purpose is like the tool is a tool. Tool can do both. It's what we can do with that. It's our choice and it's what we decide to do with that. So, for example, you know, if you give people like this tool of AI, which makes things life for other people very, very easy, right? I mean, that's the whole idea of creating these tools. So you can now use it. People are using it now. They're talking about, oh, I use it, you know, to create email. I can create contacts, and you hear about all these, you know, media reporters who say, oh, I didn't write this content, you know, ChatGPT wrote it for me. So that's okay. That's, you know, I shouldn't be concerned about that. But what if you can use it to create, let's say, unethically, to create scientific papers? I mean, this is unethical to do, right? Or let's say you use it in order to create all kinds of misinformation that you spread all over the internet. Or you can use that in a way that is heinous, and you're going to create all kinds of I don't know, press releases, all kinds of misinformation.
Well, I mean, it's happening now.
It's happening now, right. But now it's going to take it to the nth degree because it's so easy to do because, you know, other people didn't bother to do that. Oh, you know, I don't know how to write and I don't know how to do that. But now I don't even have to think about how to write things like that and spread the misinformation because all I have to do is, you know, maybe put a few keywords and then it does it for me. So it makes it easier. But should I completely censor the entire tool and say, don't use it? Like, you know, like I'm telling you, don't use your knife, you know, to cut salad because you can also kill someone with it, right? That's insane because it can still do good things with it.
Right.
So you can't just say, okay, don't use it completely, and that's what the EU is doing with pressing what I said, you know, the panic button, because they're saying, they're taking the tool as a tool and saying, oh, this is high risk, and therefore it is subject to very, very high compliance and requirements, and kind of censoring it in a way. I mean, but not only just GDP. I mean, think about things that relatively like seems innocent, like Grammarly, right? You use it.
I use it all the time.
But you know, this is also considered high risk according to the EU.
Yeah.
Or there's another one like SpeechMate. Like, you know, that it's kind of like take your voice and write it for you. I mean, people use it all the time, especially reporters, right? It's also high risk. And there's another one that Bloomberg is using, I think it's called Brief Analyzer, which is, you know, legislators are using it, you know, to write the content. This is also considered a high risk, according to the EU. So all of these things that you say, I'm using it all the time, no, the EU is saying you cannot use it.
Yeah, which is so interesting because I've fooled around with ChatGPT and it really is, I mean, you know, the
research.
It
can be fun.
It is, and you know, I'm working on my research paper and I'm talking about Web3 and so forth, so I had asked ChatGPT, explain to me the evolution of Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and one way you can tell that it is computer generated, the grammar and the spelling is perfect. Not a lot of people write like that. So I'm like, okay, that's one way to tell. And I get it, there are a lot of good things that can come out of it, but don't we still kind of have to do the grunt work, especially with what you do when you're working with, you know, scientific evidence and writing empirical dissertations and so forth? You can't really get away with ChatGPT. It's unethical, and I don't even think it has the capability to do something like that, does it?
Well, I mean, you can create the article. I mean, no one, can tell whether, it was done, by ChatGPT or somebody else. But what I think, we have to be very careful about that. Not take the entire tool and say, don't use it. Now we have to put all kinds of policies and regulations on the use cases. Use case by use case. So let's say if we are now talking about this unethical, if use this research paper, and so now it's up to the user. We have to put policies and rules on the users. I mean, we always do that, for plagiarism, yeah. We have, I mean, yeah, especially, as an educator, in universities, we always talk about that with students, about plagiarism and, that they have their essays and everything has to be authentic, et cetera, et cetera. So you always have these policies in place. So we have to do that. Instead of saying, okay, don't use it at all, like you've been using it and play, and it's helping you for, it just uses a tool to help you. It's not to write the dissertation for you.
Because in our syllabuses now, they've updated it.
There's still a distinction between the two when I'm using it just, to get some information, and then I'm going to write it myself. And then put all the references of what helped me. And you can put even as a reference, I use ChatGPT.
Yeah, well, I actually did that to show how well it works. But think about it this way. Before Google, we all had to go to the library. We had to do research and pull books. Now I can do a lot of that research. I mean, we have access, I think it's over to 200 databases through Rutgers. And I don't even have to leave my house. I don't have to go to the libraries. Perhaps it could be a way to supplement that. I mean, the professors are going to know who wrote the work and who did it.
Exactly. I mean, you can always tell. I mean, I can always tell, if someone wrote it himself or herself, or it was somebody else. And sometimes, I can read the language, and since I read a lot about that, I can say, oh, I know this section. I saw it like in some other place. So I can always tell things like that. I'm very, but I'm sure that other professors also have that ability to see that. So what I'm trying to say is that, we shouldn't panic in a way that, okay, don't use it at all. It's still up to us to decide what to do with that, because it's a tool. It's a tool that can do good, that can help us. I mean, I'm more concerned about AI, that someone is using it, for scams, for example. And there was just a week ago a case that scammers, or criminal, I would say, use AI for voice to create voices, of loved ones, and they try, to deceive, especially elderly, and saying, oh, your grandson, I'm in jail, and I need money, and they immediately, start to run to the bank, and then fortunately, the bankers knew about it, and it was, stopped. But that scares me more than ChatGPT, helping you write an article.
Right, and I agree with you. When it comes to deep fakes or just spreading misinformation, I mean, we're so prone to it. Since 2016 with the elections and then the 2020 elections, this has been happening regardless of ChatGPT. So what does sensible regulation look like? Because you can't expect people to be accountable. You can't expect people to do the right thing. So and as we think about the evolution of, Section 230 and what that looks like, and this is only Web 2.0. We haven't even talked about Web 3.0.
Right.
What does sensible regulation look like?
There is a Digital Service Act in the EU, as opposed to the one that is the AI Act. That completely put everything, classify everything as high risk. And in that, this is a little bit more sensible. I mean, just to show you how it could be sensible, is that it's more like a sectorial legislative, meaning that they put the onus, they're asking platforms and research and search softwares to check for misinformation and discriminatory and tackle it this way. So you put policies on those platforms rather than saying, oh, you cannot use it at all. Because not everything is misinformation, not everything is harmful, not everything is gonna create a disaster and blow up the world. It just, we hear that more and more because the technology is advancing. It's making it easier and easier and easier for people to use, and easier also for criminals to use.
Yeah.
This is why you see more of criminal activities than you saw before, just because it's make it easier. So the idea is to put more restriction and more monitoring and more codes on the platform themselves to make sure that this type of misinformation will not happen. So have more monitoring like that.
Right.
So let's say if someone is using it, maybe put like an alert that someone is using it for misinformation, or someone is using it to create an ethical scientific paper. So you can do that. It is possible to monitor that. It may take more time, more work, but that's something that is possible to do.
All right. Appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.